I've been one of them. One of those MCU fanboys that claimed Marvel had surpassed Star Wars. And for a time, I think that was actually true. However, now, let me phrase it like this. I think the Empire struck back. This is the Review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. First up, we have Merv. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Great. And of course, last but not least, we have Mr. Taylor first. How are you?
Hey, good.
That's also great to hear. Today we're going to talk about episode 8, the season finale, called The Return of Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Well, that's a mouthful. Before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video. Subscribe to our channel, and if you really want more of us, you can join our ranks. Go to Sakar, sakar.freeforms.net. Set up an account. Get to know us, and yes, we herewith invite you to join us in our reviews or podcast. We would love to have you on the show. True, we do. See, Merv, he did it. Consider this your final warning. After this point, the spoilers are incoming, so if you haven't seen last week's episode, go check it out first and then come back to our review. Din Djarin captured. Paz Vizsla dead. And the rest of the Mandalorians on the run. How will they be able to defeat Moff Gideon and reclaim Mandalore? Well, let's talk about it. Taylor, there was a scene in the finale of season 3 of The Mandalorian: The Return that reminded me of a scene in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Grogu saving Din and Bo from the big fire in the lair of Moff Gideon. It reminded me a little bit of Groot's saving the Guardians when the Dark Aster fell down to Xandar, I believe it was, and he made a ball of wood. It was very similar. I saw the resemblance. Did you catch that too, or do you now catch on because I say it?
Yeah, that thought actually did cross my mind when I was watching it. But I mean, it doesn't take away from it. It was a great scene anyway.
Yeah. Did you like the season finale?
I did. I really liked the season finale. In fact, the season finale really reminded me of a classic James Bond movie. I'm talking like Roger Moore, late Sean Connery era, where the hero is inside the villain's lair. He's captured. He escapes. Meanwhile, the good troops are attacking from the outside. So all the henchmen are out fighting them, while he is searching for the big bad inside the lair. And then, of course, he gets some help from the Bond girl. And then there was a little bit of Grogu comedy relief in there. Of course, he has to deal with the main henchman as well, which in this case is the instead of Jaws, it's the Praetorian Guards. So again, it felt very much like one of those, you only live twice, where they're inside the volcano and the ninjas are fighting the henchmen and he's chasing the main bad guy. So it felt a lot like that. And I'm not saying that in a bad way at all. I thought it was a really great episode, actually, and a great ending for the season. They tried to wrap up a lot of things. I'm sure we'll talk about the season as a whole, but for example, like episode 1, the whole RG-11 storyline, we now know was just an excuse for him to go to Hollow Creed's planet.
Navarro.
It was just a reason for him to go there and fight the pirates. They say bringing him back as RG-12 and putting Grogu in him really doesn't change that fact that it was really just an excuse for him to go to that planet. However, they did keep going back to it throughout the season. So overall, like I said, as far as this episode goes, this was a great episode. I mean, it was pure action and a great ending with Bo-Katan, of course, reassuming the throne. The Mandalorians all back on Mandalore, going to rebuild their planet, and of course, Jin and Grogu now back on the other planet with Carl Weathers, and he's working as a bounty hunter, but he's also raising Grogu as his own. So I mean, it tied up very well, and I thought it was a good ending for the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Merv, there was another scene that reminded me of something I've seen before in Star Wars, actually, and I'm going back to the Phantom Menace, with all those red shields that were. When you have the big fight with Darth Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and then they have also those shields, and they close and they open, they close and they open. This was also in this episode a little bit. Of course, now we had that by now heroic droid. He started out as a scared little thing, but now he's heroic. R5 opening up those shields. Did you see that immediately as well?
Yeah, I mean, the second that all those barriers were there, it was just very reminiscent of it, and that's actually one of my favorite scenes of this episode. Whenever Din Djarin is fighting his way through, one layer at a time, even though there's like a moment of weirdness in there that I didn't really care for, but yeah, that scene was one of my favorites of this episode. This episode as a whole, I probably aren't as high on it as Taylor sounded like it. I wouldn't call it great. I would call it pretty good though. And a perfectly capable series finale or season finale, and maybe even series finale. Honestly, by the end of it, I was like, this could very well work as an ending, and I'm perfectly okay with it.
I'm coming back to that in a minute, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. But this episode as a whole, I thought the action was fun. I thought in particular the Din Djarin fight sequences, I thought they had the most attention to detail, the most interaction, the most fun, the most like musical cues. Like every time you heard that like bow, that Din Djarin bow, that was very fun for me. So this was a pretty good action-packed finale. Mm-hmm. I think the previous episode was a little bit better, but this one was more than capable.
Yeah, we got to talk before we started recording our video, and I actually said I watched it on the Wednesday it came out. We were recording this not the weekend after, but the weekend after that, so like 10 days later. And I actually had to rewatch because I couldn't really remember this finale. It was a little bit forgettable, and I always. Maybe I'm not a typical pop culture fan, but I always tend to drift off a little bit during action scenes because, it's just basically guys or girls punching each other. And, usually it tends to be a little bit boring in my view. I'm in it for the dialogue and the actual acting and stuff happening, which is significant. So, am I a bit harsh to say this finale was a little bit too much action and therefore a little bit forgettable? I know Taylor is going to come down on me in a minute, but I'll let you give an answer first, Merv.
I don't think that's wrong in any way. It's in, not to get too far into it, but it's a little bit of carryover from Andor, most likely, where it was very well written and everything mattered, and then you come here and it's just like stuff is happening, and it isn't necessarily as much emphasis put on like why or how or the consequences. It's just like, hey, there's an action sequence. But I can understand where the some disappointment, for lack of a better word, might be in regards to the
I wouldn't say disappointment, because I really enjoyed the ending when they relit the Great Forge on Mandalore, and actually I liked the ending with Grogu and Din Djarin. Again, I will come back to that in a minute. With forgettable, I just mean there's not much that sticks. there's still a line from WandaVision almost 2.5 years later that still resounds in my head because it was so well written and so well brought by Paul Bettany. And I don't see that in this season finale, something that will really be remembered for 2 years later. Or am I too harsh, Taylor?
Well, I see where you're coming from. This show was not focused on, high class writing or on, psychological or character development type of show. It was very pulpy, which means the writing, takes a back seat to the action and the adventure and the, kick butt moments and so on, which I think is what it was trying to be. I don't think it was trying to be Andor. It was trying to be its own thing, and it's very much like a lot of the franchise, the Star Wars franchise. I mean, it's mostly like that, with some exceptions. So I think this episode was meant to be a big climax, a big climatic action scene, and that's what it was for the most part. I just want to say I also really liked that scene with the barriers, kind of a hallway scene. It was reminiscent sort of Daredevil or John Wick, because it was really good fight choreography in that scene as well. So yeah, I really liked that one too.
Yeah, I actually, and I'm quoting Rene Russo's Freya it actually was very successful at what it was. I mean, if you say couldn't it have been better, I say yes. But as what it wanted to be, it was very successful and very good. I mean, it was great action. A nice send-off from Moff Gideon, because I don't see him surviving this. Maybe a clone, but stacked away somewhere. But I don't see that happening. But to me, it was for what it wanted to be, it was good. So it's not like I hate it or anything. I just I maybe I want different things, if you know what I mean. But we're not here to judge on what we want, but we're here to judge on what we get, and what we got was good. Okay, I've been teaching this a few times already. I saw a post online somewhere. As you may or may not recall, the episode ended with a view of Din Djarin sitting outside of his little cabin, and then Grogu playing around with a frog thing, with the Force and stuff like that. And then the view went to a little circle before the credits came. That happened 3 times before in Star Wars. That happened with the original Star Wars movie. That happened with The Phantom Menace. And it happened with The Force Awakens. In all 3 cases, it was the first movie of a trilogy. So my question to you, is this the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end? Taylor, let's have it.
Good question. I think elements of this story are definitely going to be carrying over into Ahsoka, which I think is the next series that we're going to see. God knows when we're going to see a movie, but there is definitely going to be movies that are also going to be within this particular corner of the universe, this time period with these characters.
100%. Dave Filoni is directing and writing a movie, I think, together with Jon Favreau, about the shows they are doing in this timeline, and actually the movie is going to connect everything and finish the whole story off. That's what they intend to do.
Right, which I think means they've got at least a couple of years before that comes out. Mm-hmm. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if an episode of Ahsoka cuts away and it's a Mandalorian story. They've kind of created a pattern of that in these shows. or it may just be a lesser crossover. She may come and get help. But I guess the big question is there going to be a fourth season of The Mandalorian? And if I had to bet right now, I'd say yes, for several reasons. One, I think even though its viewership has gone down a little bit this season, I still think it's one of the biggest properties on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
and Disney Plus has had to can several new shows after the first season recently, so I don't think it can afford to throw this one out. I'm trying to remember, is there another series planned that's going to be in this time period? I know they were going to do a Rangers thing, but I think they canceled that.
Yeah, well, I think actually that Rangers thing is going to be the continuation of The Mandalorian, because he's going to do work for the Rangers of the New Republic. Of course, you have Ahsoka. Knowing Dave Filoni, we will get like 26 seasons of Ahsoka because he just loves that character. Of course, you have the book of Boba Fett, where Boba Fett is ruling Tatooine, and they can never resist going back to Tatooine. So I expect something to happen there as well. So the possibilities are endless, and you never know what other thing. They have been teasing the return of Thrawn so much, and we know we will get him in Ahsoka, but I doubt it will be a one-season thing that will actually end in that movie, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that Darth Gideon is not Darth Gideon, Moff Gideon is dead, as in actually dead.
Yeah.
And he could have been a clone, I know, but I hope he's actually dead. And I'm hoping like Thrawn now becomes the main villain for this little mini universe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there'll be a Boba Fett season 2 per se, but I think, like you said, I think Ahsoka and Mando will be going back to Tatooine and interacting with Boba Fett in the future, and I think he'll definitely be in the movie as well. But yeah, I definitely think there's going to be at least one more season of Mandalorian, and then I think all three of them will come together in the movie. I have a feeling. I mean, I'm hoping the Ahsoka show is a big success, and I think it will be at this point.
Yeah,
and I think it's really going to build a lot on the stuff that the setting that they started in this show, with the stuff going on Coruscant and the stuff going on with the First Order, or whatever the remnants of the Empire is calling itself at this point. There's definitely been a lot of groundwork laid.
Yeah. Okay, Merv. The end of the beginning or the beginning of the end? And all the other stuff we were talking about.
Well, I have to agree. I think this season, more than a lot, has felt, especially now that you see the finale, has felt like they've introduced so many things that they didn't really do much with this season, that like, I don't know if it's going to show up in a Mandalorian season 4 or a movie, or how everything's going to tie together. But I definitely think you'll see Din Djarin and Grogu again in something. Probably Mandalorian season 4. I don't, like, for all the reasons Taylor just said, I don't think they're going to get rid of probably their most popular Star Wars show, even if this season was, below what they expected or wanted. But I still think you're going to see those characters either referenced, or some of the side characters from this show. Maybe what's her name? The Mandalorian Queen now. Bo-Katan. Yeah, sorry, the name escaped me. See her again. This, I definitely think it's leading to other things. If it isn't the beginning, or I forget how you put it, the end of the beginning, the beginning of the end. I don't think it's the beginning of the end for any of this stuff. Okay. But I think they'll find ways to lead it into different avenues, movies and TV shows, for sure.
Okay. Before we go rate, I first want to talk about season 3 as a whole. And I think we all agree that season 1 actually stood out a lot. When it came out, everybody was raving about it. Season 2 was, I wouldn't say mid, but was like a continuation. They needed a filler episode or two, and then we got an awesome finale bringing back Luke Skywalker. Of course, we have Mandalorian Season 2.5 in the middle of the Book of Boba Fett, and now we have Season 3. Where does Season 3 stand in that whole story? I mean, how do you feel about it? Merv, you go first.
Mixed at best. I'll put it that way. I think it felt like it lacked structure for me. Like it felt like as you're watching episode to episode that I don't really know what the storyline's supposed to be, and like it for a lot of it, it didn't like it was an adventure of the week, but it didn't feel like satisfying adventure of the week. I guess I'll put it that way. Like some of the stories just fell flat for me. Some of the, continuous plot threads felt like they were going nowhere. And even now, like looking back, I'm like that episode with the lady in disguise, the secret woman working for Moff Gideon. It's like, what was that? Why do we have to spend an whole episode on that character just for her to show up later and introduce Moff Gideon to us? It's like, I felt like if they'd have reintroduced Moff Gideon earlier in the season, it might have helped keep that, nefarious factor, or just go full bore and go with Bo-Katan's, redeeming Mandalore, bringing it back, go right to that. But it just felt like we wasted a lot of time doing pointless tasks, jumping back and forth from point A to point B, only to finally get to like Mandalore in the last 2 episodes, and then everything you wanted to see was in the last 2 episodes, and like like what happened in episode 4? I don't know, Dragon ate a kid or something. It doesn't even matter. Like none of it matters now, and it really didn't help further too many side characters or supporting characters. Like when you think back to Bill Burr's character, I don't remember what his name is, but from the previous seasons, like he had that moment where like it like set with you good. And I feel like the Mandalorian who died in the previous episode, like, or in the penultimate episode or whatever you want to call it, like he had a little bit of that, but he still knew almost nothing about him. You don't know anything about any of these people. Mm-hmm. So I think it was lacking a little bit of supporting cast and plot interest compared to the previous seasons. It was good enough to keep watching, and I love Din Djarin. I love Grogu. Once Grogu got the robot, I thought it was adorable. He's pretty much adorable the whole time. But I do think it just felt like yes. When he was hitting the note, it just makes me laugh every time. Like whenever he's like stopping the Red Guard from killing him, or I forget what it was, but it cracked me up. But this season as a whole just felt like a little bit messier than the previous ones, and I don't know if it's due to writing or what the deal was there. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just, getting over it. I don't know. I didn't go back and rewatch the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian. No. Maybe I will at some point, but just to almost be a comparison, but it's because it's been a little while. But this one just felt like, some episodes would hook you, and then the next episode would just fall flat on its face for me, and, a little bit messy.
Mm-hmm. Taylor, I want your opinion.
Yeah, I agree with it. It's kind of hard to put your finger on. It seems like they were trying to do something different this season, a little bit more of an adventure of the week type of show, and I'm not sure if that was intentional or they just had less time to write stuff for this season for some reason.
Yeah, but
technical difficulties.
To be fair, the first 2 seasons you had an underlining storyline of Din trying to get Grogu back to his people, or at least to a place where they would take care of him. But they also had a lot of episodes where it's just adventure of the week and a little bit messy. I mean, I wouldn't say that season 3 was particularly different than season 1 and 2 in that regard.
Yeah, no, I agree. They did have an adventure pretty much every episode. There was always an action scene. Virtually every episode had an action scene. It just seemed like there was just a little bit less emphasis on the overarching storyline in this episode. It was a little bit more in the background than in the other seasons.
Yeah. I tend to agree. And I also strongly agree with what Merv said, is that what you wanted, what was clear that they would set up was Mandalore. I mean, they immediately went to Mandalore, and they set that up perfectly, that he had to bathe there in the waters and blah 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 and stuff like that. But it took them a long time to get there. I mean, that whole fourth episode with those raptors. I mean, that was like the ice spiders, if you can still recall it, or the one where they actually meet Bo-Katan, where he meet Bo-Katan for the first time on the ocean planet with all the Mon Cal and stuff like that. I mean, it's there were a lot of episodes in season 1 and 2 that were like that, but season 3 just tend to stand out. I mean, we got a whole episode where they just chase. They have a whole whodunit with
Yeah.
with droids on a
Yeah.
on a planet owned by Blackjack and Lizzo. I mean, yeah, it was really messy. I tend to agree with Mervyn, you as well. I mean, Taylor,
Yeah,
if
no,
you,
I'm not sure if they just didn't develop the main storyline enough to fill the time they had, and instead they filled it with, and I don't even like to use the word filler episodes, but I'm using the word fill. They filled the time with
yeah,
other side stories, because if they were just a little bit more anxious to get to Mandalore, it seemed like they really seemed to take their time with everything. It's like, hey, I bathed in the water. Let's go to Mandalore like tomorrow. No, it's like, we're gonna have to find these people. Oh, by the way, we got to train on the beach for a while and hope the murder bird doesn't take another kid. It's just kind of lackadaisical about getting to the main point. But at the same time, pretty much all the episodes were enjoyable, for the most part. I mean, the Murder Bird episode, the writing was pretty weak. I'll admit that. But for the most part, all the other episodes were very entertaining and exciting. But like I said, it just seemed like there was just a little bit less emphasis on the big overarching plot, and
yeah,
more emphasis on the side plots in this season.
yeah. I think the low point of the whole season was, I think Taylor pointed it out during the episode with the Raptors, where they arrive at the mountain and then decide to stay the night before they climb up,
Right.
instead of having a sense of urgency and try to save a kid. But
While
anyway,
a child is being digested in a raptor's
yeah,
stomach.
exactly. So
Let's
yeah,
eat dinner. We'll go up in the morning.
and that's where my main critique for the whole season of The Mandalorian is coming from. They need a lot, and actually the whole series of The Mandalorian, they need a lot of time to get where they want to go, and a lot of it is redundant, just build up. But Murph, you had a follow up.
Yeah, just touching on the I guess lack of anxiousness to get back to Mandalore. Even the stepping stones to get to that process for the Mandalorians weren't that satisfying. Like, they saved Apollo Creed's planet from pirates, and he was like, "Oh, everything west of the valley you can call it your new home." And like 3 minutes later, they were leaving. It was like, so they didn't even make camp. You know what I mean? They were just like, "Oh, we got to go back like right now." Which is fine for. But it didn't even feel like that mattered. Like, they didn't even need that home at that point, because they were just immediately gone somewhere else, doing something else. And I don't know, that just felt like it was throughout this entire season. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, that was odd. I hope Taylor is still with us.
Yeah, I
Before,
agree. Merv's exactly right on that point. That's a perfect example of
yeah,
not following up with anything, and establishing something and then just throwing it away in the next episode.
mhm, exactly, and of course, that pirate will come back in some form or way at a certain moment in whatever outing. But anyway, um, I first before we go to it, I have one more thing that just popped in my head that I wanted to discuss. Earlier in this review series, I mentioned that there was a theory out there that Grogu was actually the titular character and that they are building up him becoming the leader of Mandalore. Of course, now the Darksaber is gone, so he will have to do it another way. And I think they already hinted at that in when they were standing at the waters in this season finale. You see him looking down after he became a Mandalorian apprentice and make a connection with the Mythosaur. And I think at a certain moment, and I think they will save it for the movie, we will see Grogu ride the Mythosaur and become the Mandalorian, the leader of Mandalore. Taylor, am I out of line here now? By asking you, what do you think about it?
That's very possible. I mean, they pretty much said he's a Mandalorian apprentice. I mean, they did say he's a Mandalorian apprentice now, so he's definitely going to become a Mandalorian. Right, the Mythosaur. I'm just thinking how hilarious that scene is going to be. He rides the Mythosaur and becomes the leader. Again, very possible. Or, maybe he'll become, Bo-Katan's trusted advisor and force wielder. Who knows? They could go a lot of ways, but I think that they're definitely building up as him becoming, much more integral to Mandalore and their story.
Merv?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, whether or not he rides the Mythosaur, I'm not sure, but I definitely think he is. I pretty much made the choice during the Book of Boba Fett to choose the Mandalorian culture over the Jedi culture. So he still has the Force abilities, but he's definitely in training to be a Mandalorian. And I'll go one further. I think I wonder if they won't do a little bit of a leap forward the next time we see him. Just based on that ending, because like they're at a comfortable spot. So it wouldn't surprise me if like the next time we see him, he's like, I'm not gonna say like, the way they did Baby Groot, the different stages, but like maybe he's a little bit older and a little bit, maybe he can talk by then. You know what I mean? That's honestly all I'm asking for, because I think Baby Yoda or whatever his name is, I think that's it's had a good run, but I think maybe we could do something else with the character at this point, even though I found him adorable.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Taylor?
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with like the extended universe material in Star Wars, like all the books and everything, and all. I haven't even watched all of the animated stuff, but I'm wondering, has there been a Mandalorian Force wielder?
Yeah, the first
in the
one,
Star Wars
the
franchise
actual
before?
first, the first Mandalorian, as they call, was actually a force wielding Mandalorian, and he was the first one to lead the Mandalore. As far as I know, I'm like you. I'm actually in the process of watching the Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff like that, because I like the Bad Batch so much. But that's what I understood from the people who have much more knowledge about this stuff than me. But anyway.
Yeah, it just seems like a Mandalorian with the Force would be a pretty powerful force to reckon with right there.
Exactly, and I think they're setting that up for the movie that Dave Filoni is making, and that's a long time coming if it ever comes out, because it's still Lucasfilm that announces movies, and they have a history of not actually putting them in the theater. But anyway, yeah, I'm looking at you, Patty Jenkins. Okay, we're gonna do a rating, and we're gonna do a rating for the finale, and we're gonna do a rating for the season. Wow, Merv, you can go first this time. I want first your number for the season finale, and then your number for the season as a whole.
Rating for the season finale, I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
Okay, fair enough. And for the season as a whole?
Season as a whole, it's a little tougher. I'll go 7, because I still enjoyed quite a bit of it, but it was a messy path to get there, and then there was some episodes that pulled you back in and made you go, oh, that's the Mandalorian I love, but not as many as the previous seasons. So
Taylor.
I'll go ahead and give the finale episode a 10 out of 10, just because there was a lot of really good moments there, a lot of really good scenes, and it was a satisfying conclusion for both the season and the show up until this point, all 3 seasons up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
The season as a whole is a little bit harder. I think I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10, just because of all the things we've just talked about, the kind of lapses in writing and a kind of a little bit of loss of focus. So yeah, I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. For the finale, I'm going 8 out of 10 because I enjoyed it for what it was, even though I thought it was a little bit forgettable. For that, I deduct 2 points, but what it wanted to be, it did very well, and therefore I give it an 8 out of 10. The season as a whole, I'm actually a little bit disappointed with it for all the reasons you guys mentioned and we discussed earlier. So I'm going to go 6 out of 10. There's that. So that will conclude this review of Champions for the Return, episode 8, the season finale of season 3 of The Mandalorian. I made it through again. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out. Like and share this review and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join us. Our forum, cigar.freeforums.net. We would love it if you join us, and we hope to see you soon. Soon also, we will be reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That will be out in 10 days or so. And in June, we will do a review series for Secret Invasion. For now, I want to thank you all also on behalf of our champions, and I wish you to be safe and be well. Bye.